Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share a process video on how I made a cute puppy celebrate card. The stamp that I'm using is a whimsy stamp called Puppy with Balloons, and I'm using some Memento Tuxedo black ink, inking it up, and then wiping away before stamping out the image the little fizzled out balloon at the bottom. I used a stamp chamois and then some Kleenex just to make sure that there's no kind of wetness left from the stamp chamois. And as you can see, I'm stamping it out again because I want a crisper, kind of more clear image. And again, I'm wiping away that fizzled out balloon on the ground because I want this image to actually look like the little balloons are lifting up the puppy up into the air. So I couldn't have that if there was a balloon lying on the floor, so I'm wiping that away. This is just another way to kind of alter a stamp to make it more of what you want. Now I'm taking a Copic multiliner pen. This is a 0.03 black Copic multiliner, and I'm just connecting the lines in the feet that didn't get quite stamped out. Really easy to do to make those little alterations to personalize a stamp. Now I'm going to color in the balloons. I've decided I'm going to have this be a very masculine birthday card, and I'm going to do the balloons in a blue, a kind of a pale green, and a blue-green. This middle color is the blue color, and it's a B66. Actually, it'll be much easier if I just list all the colors on my blog post, which I will always link to in the description box below. So if you're interested in the particular Copic colors that I'm using, please check out my blog post accompanying this video. But basically for each balloon, I'm using 2 shades within the same color family. 2 for the dark blue, 2 for the blue greens, and then 2 for the pale kind of yellow green. And I'm making sure to leave that highlight area on the upper left of each balloon so that it looks like there's a good shine on the balloons. And I'm making sure that I remember to blend in the colors. But this is really simple Copic coloring. I'm not trying to make the balloons look transparent. I've done that previously, and if you are interested in having me show you how to do kind of more translucent balloons, I'm happy to do that as well. Just leave me a comment in the comment section of this video if you would like to see that kind of balloon coloring. Anyway, really easy Copic coloring as you can see there. And now I'm going to focus on coloring up the puppy. I'm coloring this up kind of like my bandito. So it's going to have white areas and brown areas. The white areas I'm coloring up, I'm not leaving white, obviously. I want there to be the sense of texture. So I'm using short little flicking motions with an E40, which is a brick white, and an E70, which is an ash rose. And those kind of pale colors that have a little bit of a warmth to them are really great for white fur. And as you can see, I'm trying to follow along the curve of the muzzle, and I'm also following along with like where the roundedness of the belly would be. I'm trying to give the puppy a kind of white area in the middle of his forehead and the top of his head. And if you're looking at it now, you're thinking, that doesn't really look white, but just wait until I get the brown areas colored in, and that E40 and E70 are gonna look very white actually by comparison with the brown areas. And I'm starting in with kind of a mid-tone brown. This is an E23, and I'm just trying to put in where I think the shadows would be, on the edges of the face, on the lower parts of the arm, around the belly, on the underside of the belly, where the leg meets the belly, on the inside of the legs. Those are all areas that would be shadowed. Where the ears are, I'm making sure the cast shadow is also going to be a medium brown, and there's like a little bit of a divot or an indentation on each ear where it kind of flops, and I'm making sure that that's also shadowed. Now I'm taking an E33 and I'm putting in the lighter areas where the sun might be hitting the fur of this puppy. And of course, this puppy isn't going to have like white highlighted areas like the balloons will. There are not going to be any real white areas on the puppy because fur texture doesn't get that kind of shine, I think. And I want the puppy to look like it's really warm and cuddly and fuzzy. I'm taking an even lighter shade, an E31, to kind of just add some highlights or some added texture. And I think just continuing to build up the layers of color really help add that realism for fur texture. And I realize at this point that the white area is a little bit askew on the puppy, which is totally fine. A puppy is not going to be exactly symmetrical, but I know I can fix that a little bit with my white jelly roll pen. This is a Uniball Signo, a white jelly roll pen, and it gives really very dominant kind of bright white jelly roll marks. And I'm doing the same kind of thing. I'm using short flicking motions for that white area. Now I've decided I want the white areas to look more white, but I'm not sure how I'm going to get there. So I'm going to fill in the little puppy's nose. This is with I think like a C9, and I'm leaving the little white area on the nose so that there's a good shine. I'm also adding highlights to the eyes with a white jelly roll pen, and I'm re-emphasizing the white highlighted areas on the balloons. Now I've decided I'm going to use a white jelly roll pen. This white jelly roll pen is a little more kind of subtle. It's not quite as heavy as the Uniball Signo white jelly roll pen, and I really like adding this as extra detailed texture for the puppy. And as you can see, just adding those little tiny flick marks really gives a sense of detail to the puppy fur, which I really like. And it makes the white areas more white without having it be like a stark white. Now I'm going to move on to adding some detail to the brown areas. Because I've added all of that texture with the white jelly roll pen, the two different types for the white areas of the puppy, I've decided I want the brown areas to also have that kind of fine detail. So I'm taking a Copic multi-liner pen in warm gray. This is a 0.3, and I'm re-establishing where all the shadows are going to be on that puppy. So the lower parts of the arms, where the front arm meets the back arm, on the sides of the face, where the face by the eyes meets the muzzle, there's going to be a little bit of a cast shadow. There'll be shadows where the balloons cast a shadow. I'm also going to re-emphasize that area where it's just below the ears, so that part gets a little bit of shadowing. And this, like I said before, all of this fur coloring is really forgiving. If you make a stray mark, it's easy to cover up with the next, bit of flicking texture coloring. I'm also making sure that the area underneath the armpits gets a little shadow, under the belly, by the feet. And I think that really adds a lot to giving that puppy a realistic look. Now I'm going to make my own kind of DIY cloud stencil. You just saw me draw in really quickly with a black marker. I would normally do that in pencil, but I did it in marker so you could see it better. Sorry, the camera's focusing in and out, but hopefully it'll come back in frame. Yeah, there we go. And I'm just doing like little arches, connecting different sized arches together to kind of create the sense of puffy clouds. I'm cutting that out with a scissor, and now I'm ready. I'm wiping off the ink just in case I didn't want any smears with a tissue. Now I'm going to take some Tim Holtz Distress ink in tumbled glass, and I'm just using a blender tool and going across the whole length of the card front. I'm going to be cutting off the excess, but I knew I wanted to do a bigger blended background that I could cut down to size as I decided what size card I was going to make. But I really wanted lots of kind of fun, puffy clouds in the background, and using a stencil like this with just some simple blending makes it really fun and fast. Very cartoon-like. Obviously, this is not realistic, but just doing this kind of simple blending really adds a lot of kind of visual texture and interest to a background. And I think this will also give a sense of almost like a scene card for this little puppy to be flying up in the air, holding those balloons, and You just have to be careful as you're doing this to kind of match up, if your stencil isn't as wide as your paper, to match up the curves. Now I'm taking a Memory Box Birch Trio die, and I'm going to run that through with some white cardstock. I actually only want 2 of the trees. I'm following more or less a little sketch from the MFT, or My Favorite Things sketch challenge. So I'm going to use 2 of the birch trees, and I'm cutting off the excess branches from the 3rd tree so that it just looks like 2 birch trees standing together. And I'm taking a Copic brown. I can't remember. I think this is the E23 or the E25. I'm not sure. And I'm just coloring in the little indentations, because birch trees aren't all white. They're kind of white with a dark brown areas where the birch tree has those really characteristic markings. So I'm just going to add some little bits of brown to that die cut pair of trees. Now I'm going to cut out an oval frame. I'm using some Diamond Dies oval frames. I'm using the, I think, 3rd and 4th largest ovals, and I've just cut out a frame, and now I want to pop that frame up just a little bit. This is a technique that I've shown before, but basically I'm taking double-sided tape and I'm putting it on my craft mat, and I'm going to roll it, and it adds just a hint of dimension so it doesn't lie completely flat on my card front, but not too much. And it's great because using strips of double-sided tape like this can get around curves fantastically, rather than using like foam tape, which is sometimes harder to get around tight curves like that. So I'm going to place that oval over to the kind of left side of the card front, and now I'm going to glue down using some wet glue those 2 birch trees to the right of that oval. The oval was really more to kind of frame out the little puppy flying through the sky and give some accent or focus to that main image. I'm going to cut off the excess of that little birch tree, and now I'm going to put some thin double-sided foam adhesive. This is Stampin' Up's Dimensionals, so that the little puppy can be flying up at a diagonal. The balloons are pulling him over to the upper right, so I need that dimension so that the puppy and the balloons are kind of flush up against the level of the oval. And I'm going to add just a little bit of wet glue on that oval area that the puppy is going to be adhered to. Now I'm going to cut off the excess of the card front. I've decided I'm going to make this into a square card rather than rectangular. And the final piece that I want to do is I want to do a sentiment. And I wanted the sentiment word to be coordinated with the balloon colors. So I'm just taking the same Copic marker colors, and I'm going to do kind of a blended ombre effect. It's going from the blue to the blue-green, then to the light green, and I'm going back and forth just creating that blended little strip there on plain cardstock. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm using a word die. This is from the Sizzix Script Celebrations word die set, and I'm just using the word celebrate. I'm going to die cut that out, and I'm going to use my little pokey tool to get all the little pieces out of that celebrate and have the word pop out. That's a little quick stick, and the word, I think, came out looking fabulous. It matches perfectly with those balloons. And now I'm just going to use my ATG gun to put that card front onto a light blue card base, and I'm going to glue on the celebrate word at the bottom. I hope you've enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.